The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
For close to a century, women have more than held their own in the male-dominated industry of sports entertainment.
There's your winner, Mae Young.
Mat mavens like Mae Young helped shatter the proverbial glass ceiling, inspiring generations who would blaze a path.
It's a blaze for sure!
Taking their preternatural skills to unprecedented heights.
All or nothing under the moonsault!
Leading to a revolution in the women's division.
What a sight! A groundbreaking moment! The celebration of a new era in WWE! The greatest era of women's wrestling of all time!
Now, for the first time in history, 32 women from all over the globe take their rightful place in the spotlight, celebrating the legacies of those who have paved the way, while showcasing their modern-day virtuosity. Tonight, these 32 competitors vie for all the glory, the honor, and the prestige of winning the inaugural Mae Young Classic.
WU2M proudly presents to you the Mae Young Classic. And here's your host, Paul Leazar, Harry Broadhurst, and Patrick Ketza.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wrestling Unwrapped to the Max, and this is our coverage of the Mae Young Classic. In this episode, we'll be covering episodes 7 and 8, which are the quarterfinals and the semifinals, and yes, we are going to complain about the release schedule, but first up, I'm Paul Leazar, and I'm joined by Mr. Harry Broadhurst.
Reunited. Never mind. What's up, everyone?
And Mr. Patrick Ketza.
For the sake of everybody, I'm not singing.
And we're all the happier for it.
Yeah, I kind of regret it. Now I got a frog in my throat.
Of course, we are brought to you by W2Mnet.com, 401mania.com, and Last Word on ProWrestling.com. All those places you can check us out at for both of our related shows here, Wrestling Unwrapped and Wrestling to the Max. We're also everywhere podcasts can be found, Apple, Stitcher, all those great places. So, we're going to just dive right into episode 7 here, which is the quarterfinals all in one package, which I think really hurt some of these matches, if you ask me. However, it did not affect the opener as Abby Laith takes on Mercedes Martinez. And I love this match right from the word go because this is Mercedes, I think, playing the match that she loves to play. Abby wants to do holds. Mercedes don't play that shit and just slaps the living hell out of her at least 4 or 5 times before we get to them trying to murder each other. And Abby even tries to kill herself a little bit with that off-balance crossbody that Mercedes totally saves her from dying on. And eventually Mercedes Martinez does put this away with a wonderful Fisherman Buster to move on into the next round. And I thought Abby has been wonderful in this tournament, if you ask me. But this was the first really great match that Mercedes has had, if you ask me too.
I think quality of opposition may have been the issue for Mercedes before. Princesa Suhei may be a big name down in Mexico, but to the American fans, she's not that big of a name. And to the uninitiated that only saw her in this tournament, she wasn't that big of a deal. And then Zia Lee, who Mercedes faced in the first round, is a developmental talent who has literally no experience outside of being signed to the Performance Center.
Right.
This was Mercedes' opportunity to step into the ring against somebody that has a major background in professional wrestling in Abby Laith, the former Princess Kimberly, a former Chicago Grand Champion, former wrestler for Evolve, and a bunch of other male-dominated promotions as well. So it was her opportunity to showcase what she's capable of in the kind of match that Mercedes is used to having, and the kind of match that Abby is used to having as well, because she's used to being that resilient, plucky babyface, and that's exactly what she got to portray here.
Mm-hmm.
Hallelujah. You know, I mentioned...
Thought you weren't going to sing.
That was spoken word, Harry. Get it right.
No, it wasn't.
Shut up. I mentioned in our previous episode that I thought Mercedes was among the most disappointing in the second round, and I think it was that mentioned quality of opponent. I still say Mercedes had one of the more disappointing second rounds, but this pretty much proves that, yes, it also did have to do with quality of opponent, because Abby gives Mercedes the best match of the tournament for Mercedes. And it was great to see kind of the further along veteran pull out the victory over another, well tenured veteran of the ring like Abby Lath. Abby has one hell of an upside ahead of her, and I would not be surprised if at some point I won't say this year because there's only one left, but I would not be surprised if at some point in 2018, Abby Lath is not in the running for a title shot at a takeover. In terms of Mercedes, picking up the win, I'm loving that, she's able to get all the way to the semifinals now and is one step away from going to Las Vegas. It'll be interesting to see who she has to face in the semifinals. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But I'm glad that she's able to get the run that she's been having in this tournament.
You know what this match actually does for me, though, Paul, before you go ahead and move on to the next contest?
Yeah.
This match reassures my faith in the status of the NXT women's division as well. Mm-hmm. In addition to the performances put in by some of the other people earlier on in the show that we've seen, such as Lacey Evans, Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Dakota Kai, and now here with Abby Lath's performance as well, in addition to, as I mentioned on the last episode, that we did all the women that are currently down in NXT, such as Ember Moon, Ruby Riott, Billie Kay, Peyton Royce, and Nikki Cross. The status of women's wrestling in NXT is alive and well.
Mm-hmm. We, there's been a lot of talk from Triple H, at least saying that the women's roster has depth because most of the stuff you haven't seen yet hasn't even been on TV because they've all been doing the live shows, or they all are just sort of waiting for their opportunity. And this was it for a lot of them, and I would say for sure a majority of them have impressed so far. And Abby Lath, if you weren't familiar with her before, you certainly, I think, got a terrific snapshot of her in each of her matches throughout the tournament.
Not to mention with the rumors of NXT adding a secondary title as well, and the fact that there's talk going around that NXT might be expanding to 2 hours a week. I think the women's division could easily help carry NXT to filling in that 2-hour weekly quota.
All right, I'm about to say something that's probably going to get me in a hell of a lot of trouble. But I think one of the reasons why you'll be able to see, I think that this is the best opportunity that the NXT women's division is going to have in a long, long time, especially with the fact, here's where I'm going to get in trouble, that you're probably not going to have a champion that's going to massacre the entire women's division.
But she was so entertaining doing so.
The hell she was.
You're on your own on this one because I'm almost certain Paul agrees with me here.
See,
there's something very entertaining about watching Asuka kill bitches.
I agree with you on that point, and towards the end, it was starting to get a little tiring for me because I was ready to move on to that next person, and I'm still a little kind of miffed that she didn't drop the championship, but injuries and stuff like that changed maybe the course that they had here. And I'm not so certain that maybe the next person who gets the championship doesn't get another dominant run, depending on how they decide to do this. So, I enjoyed Asuka's run.
Nudge, nudge.
Yeah. Let's just go ahead and move on to the next one, because I feel like we could talk about Asuka for a long time on the show with Patrick calling us stupid. But Candice LeRae takes on Shayna Baszler in the next contest. I really like this, too, because, one, you put Candice in the perfect role once again of having to play from underneath and really trying to get the crowd on her side, and it's so easy so far with what Shayna does. And then they sort of take it over the top because Candice gets to look really competitive, but she goes for the wild ride maybe too early, and Shayna spins out of it and drops down into the rear naked choke to get the win. And she refuses to let go until Candice LeRae passes out, and the Full Sail crowd is all over Shayna afterwards. And she just looks super dangerous. And afterwards, Johnny Wrestling comes into the ring to check on his wife, and Shayna sort of kicks at Candice, almost getting Johnny to maybe stand up and choke a bitch. But I thought this was maybe the most effective character work they've done for Shayna throughout the tournament. She easily now is the biggest heel in the tournament. Easily.
Hey, Johnny, be a star.
Shayna, be a star.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Move.
Yeah, but at the same time, we all know how significantly WWE frowns upon men on women violence.
That's true.
Well, yeah.
Attitude era, this ain't anymore. All right. As far as this match goes, I think this was the perfect story to tell with this match. The fact that Candice had to strike first, strike fast, strike often, trademark Ophidian, in order to be able to have any kind of a chance in this match. And then as soon as Paul mentioned she went for Miss LeRae's Wild, that name is so freaking dumb.
I'm just calling it the Wild Ride. I refuse to use her name in this move.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
We could call it the actual name of the move.
We could.
Mustache Ride! All right. Back to what I was saying. The fact that she gets kind of overconfident and goes for that move a little bit too early ends up being her downfall. I thought that was an excellent story. As far as the post-match heat segment there, I thought it was a wise decision, especially given the fact of where they may or may not be going. Mm-hmm. Nudge, nudge.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
So Harry, real quick, you and I recently covered a show, somebody who maybe went after the bell for a little too long.
We did, yes.
So my question is, why the hell was Shayna not disqualified?
The most dreaded two words in professional wrestling. Referee discretion.
Oh. Oh. AKA because wrestling.
Yep.
This was definitely...
Because Shayna was booked to advance. That's why. Damn it.
I mean, definitely, I think the best work that they've had anybody do, and given like you said, where this is kind of going, because it seems fairly obvious that her side, they have to do something to gain the negativity from the crowd, because to me it seems fairly obvious that we're going for Four Horsewomen versus Four Horsewomen as soon as Survivor Series, I would dare say. Mm-hmm. And chances are good that they're not given a reason to. The crowd's not going to boo the MMA side. Mm-hmm. So I think this was kind of the start of the catalyst towards that, towards getting the crowd on the side of the Four Horsewomen of NXT, and we start building towards that. In terms of the match, I thought Candice looked very, very good, even though it ended up turning into what we've kind of come to expect from Shayna, being murder. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually okay, with how this ending happened. And I do feel like maybe this was something that could have happened a little sooner rather than waiting all the way to the third round. But other than that, totally okay with this.
Yeah. Just real quick here to touch on what Patrick had just said there. Yeah, despite the fact that this match only went 3 minutes, a shade over 3 minutes for it, which kind of hurts the quarterfinal feeling when you have a match go less than 5 in the quarterfinals. But we just covered a title match that was less than 5 minutes too, so what do we know? But at the same time, though, I think this was a smartly booked 3 minutes, and therefore it worked.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Did you just say 3? Never mind.
Oh, boy. Somebody call Rico.
Thanks, Patrick. That song's going to be stuck in my head the rest of the night now. Thanks.
I guess we can go ahead and talk about this now, too. Later on in this episode, they show the Four Horsewomen of MMA minus Shayna and the Four Horsewomen of Wrestling minus Sasha have a little interaction outside Full Sail University, and Ronda basically lays out the challenge of anytime, anywhere. Survivor Series seems likely. That's all I was going to say. Survivor Series does seem likely. Are you guys okay with this? Do you want to talk about this in depth any, or?
I think you can make the argument that they stretch this out and do just a straight-up 4-on-4 match at WrestleMania.
The only reason I would say no is because they've made a habit of making sure to feature the championships, and if you take the four of them out for a match like that, you're looking at severely hurting the women's championship matches at Mania. I think this would be better suited, and I think because there's history there, I would be okay with it being a 4-on-4 Survivor Series style match rather than either a straight up 8-person or 8-woman tag, or B, trying to shoehorn somebody else in and make it 5-on-5. I'm okay with 4-on-4.
Mm-hmm. I am too. I kind of want to see this at Survivor Series just because I feel like that's a great marquee match for that show. And like Patrick was saying, you don't have to really worry about messing up WrestleMania too much. And if any of this carries over that far, maybe one of them could challenge for a title or something like that. Because outside of Shayna, the rest of them still need some training. And I know there's been rumors, obviously, that Ronda has been training with WWE and Jasmine Duke has started training elsewhere. And I'm not sure about Roderick Strong's wife, whose name is escaping me at the moment because it's late.
Marina
Schaefer.
Thank you. Maybe it's because I know you guys will sarcastically give me the answers that I keep forgetting their name. But I'm sure she has an easy in if she wants, or maybe however that's going to work out for her. But I mean, the pillars are there if they do want to do this at Survivor Series, and it might be a little soon. But you could maybe have Shayna carry some, or however they want to go about doing it.
My only concern will be how will this match be treated at Survivor Series? Because if you have the MMA Four Horsewomen truck the WWE Four Horsewomen, what good does that do anybody?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's going to be one of those things of you're going to see a few quick eliminations, but I feel like Shayna would probably be the one to carry most of the match on the MMA side, whereas like Charlotte or Becky would probably carry most of the match, period. Mm-hmm. Bayley may end up eating a pinfall very quickly. Marina may end up eating a pinfall or some kind of a elimination very quickly, and it's probably going to come down to like Shayna versus Charlotte at the end would be my guess.
Yeah, I would assume that Marina would probably end up eating a Bayley to belly right out of the gate, and then Bayley would find herself the receiving end of an armbar from Ronda or something to take her out of the match relatively early as well.
I think the main thing that's going to come out of this is that WWE is going to look at Ronda Rousey and they see dollar signs and they want to capitalize. So I would not be surprised at all if it ends up being Ronda Rousey and maybe Charlotte or Becky at the end of that, if that's how they're going to go about it, and maybe Ronda wins, and if she wants to do Mania, they'll carry that forward. As much as Shayna is great and everything, that's who WWE wants, and that's kind of what we were talking about in the last episode when it came to Shayna during that encounter. Shayna is almost a stand-in right now for what they want to do there. And while I felt like the angle that they did on this episode that we're talking about now with Candice absolutely won her a ton of favors and all this heat and everything like that, I still don't know if that is what WWE is after. Is it Shayna or Ronda, or are they just using Shayna to get to Ronda? That's the big question mark for me in all this.
Yeah, it's just, to me, it feels like Shayna just happens to be the most experienced in the ring and is being used as a representative more than being treated as a legitimate threat herself. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of why I'm somewhat unhappy with how Shayna's being portrayed. Because, like I said, I like Shayna. I think she's had some very good matches, especially at Shimmer and out on the West Coast, like AWS, QPW, and especially at AIW. But something just feels off. I think is the best way to put it. And it's the fact that in the back of your mind, or at least in the back of my mind, it still feels like you said, she's the stand-in. They want Ronda, even though, to me, maybe not all of it, but I feel like a lot of Ronda's luster gone.
Yes.
Not all of it, but I do feel like a fair chunk of it is gone with the fact that she's had 2 fights in, almost 2 years now, and not really much to show of it, especially after her most recent loss to Amanda Nunes. So it's like, why do you want her now?
Because now's when they can get her. Back then, they didn't really have the access to use her on a full-time basis, because then Dana White would have been all up their ass with lawyers. I think that there's enough of an MMA fan base following that will follow Ronda to the WWE, much the same way I think a lot of Ronda's fan base has been watching her on the Battle of the Network Star show as well.
I was about to say, I think Ronda has that crossover thing going for her, too. She's been in movies, she's done a whole bunch of other stuff outside of just MMA, and she does still have a name, even though it might not mean as much in the fight community. I think fans will absolutely still tune in to see her wrestle. So
Ronda has almost that rock quality about her now, and that she's bigger than the sport from which she started. She's got that crossover appeal.
Yeah.
Also, another reason why I think we could see this at Survivor Series, if they want to keep up with what they did last year, where kind of Raw versus SmackDown and then a super fight, there's your super fight. There's that big match. Hopefully it'll last longer than Goldberg and Brock did. It's your super fight right there.
Yeah.
4 Horsewomen versus 4 Horsewomen.
I remember Survivor Series, 26 seconds.
Yep.
Yeah, let's just move on. Toni Storm takes on Piper Niven in the next match. This is another standout performance for both, and maybe Tony's best so far. I would argue maybe Piper's best, depending on your feelings on the Santana-Garrett match. They work a very modern British-style wrestling match to start, and then it just turns into an all-out go get 'em sort of match as Piper starts using her power and Tony's struggling to keep up, and finally manages to catch Tony with a second rope German suplex and a big top rope leg drop. Easy enough for me to say, to finally get the big win and put a nail in Piper's run here. I love this match. This is the best match on the episode to me.
Sign Piper Niven.
Yes. Sign Tony, too.
Oh, Tony could be on WWE television tomorrow, and I don't think anybody would blink an eye. Piper doesn't have that traditional look for a WWE female superstar unless you go back to the days of Bertha Faye. But at the same time,
don't give them any ideas.
But at the same time, she is a way better worker than Bertha Faye was. I said this in the last episode. I stand by it again. Piper Niven could be Nia Jax, but with talent.
Oh, that's it. Okay. I mean, once again, Piper Niven puts on, a one hell of a performance, and I'm curious to see how much longer she has in Japan first. Because she is a title holder for Stardom right now. So, that may, that may play a part into why she hasn't gotten the contract yet. Toni Storm looks like a rock star yet again. Piper Niven looks like a god. So, everybody comes out of this one looking even better than they already were. And one thing I noticed is a lot of those critics of Piper Niven, especially after the first round match, boy, did they shut up pretty damn quick.
Thank God.
Yeah, I got 3 simple letters to those people, and I won't say what they stand for, but I'm pretty sure most people can put it together. GFY.
Global Force yourself.
Yeah.
Just real quick, too, can I give credit as well to Piper Niven for her facial expressions throughout the course of this match?
You sure can, because I was about to mention that.
The look on her face before she went for the Vader bomb, like, I'm sorry to have to do this, but I'm about to have to kill you. Mm-hmm. The look on her face, the sheer, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like the struggle that she was having with herself of, man, I really don't want to do this to her, but I have to in order to advance. Fantastic.
I also loved her facial expression, too, when they shifted gears from what they were doing at the beginning, where they were very much going for that British-style hold-for-hold thing with a little bit of comedy thrown in, and the minute that Piper decides to throw the big splash and just absolutely destroy Tony with it, she makes a great facial expression before she does all that, too. It's also worth mentioning, too, that Toni Storm is also a title holder for Stardom, and they're both competing in the 5-Star Grand Prix right now, and Stardom has a subscription service, so if you want to see more of them, absolutely go do that.
Is it 999 yen?
It isn't. It's the equivalent of $9.99. I know that.
My bigger question is it available as an app?
That I don't know.
No.
Because I refuse to watch wrestling on my small ass tablet screen.
I watch everything.
I watch it on my
computer.
phone. I watch it on my phone.
That's because you won't get a new That's because you won't get a new laptop.
Right. Won't get one. Moving on.
Don't you have a PS4 for the network?
No.
Or PS3 or something?
Yes. But don't work on it, so
okay, on. But that's what I'm saying though. More of these companies need to have their apps available in more of these companies need to have these apps available in better ways than just through online streaming services, because a lot of people, unless you have a smart TV that has a browser which will allow you to run through the television that you have, it's not conducive to sit and watch it on a small-ass tablet screen or a small-ass phone screen like Patrick is using.
So, Chromecast.
I just have my computer plugged into my TV.
There you go. I mean, Chromecast is along the same lines. I used computers and streamed it. I did it during a charity Royal Rumble marathon stream. So,
I thought never mind. I was going to make a computer joke, but I decided against it. Continue.
Good idea. Let's move on.
Yes, because we'd be here for another 10 minutes.
We would. Kairi Sane takes on Dakota Kai in the main event here. This is absolutely, I think, everything people were expecting. Very hard-hitting, very back and forth. Dakota looks awesome. Kairi looks awesome. Kairi gets the win with the big elbow drop. They end up playing into the fact that Kai maybe suffers a knee injury here, too, and that maybe causes her to come up short, too, because her kicks don't have the same zing. And I really enjoyed that as well.
Dakota, no more ponytails. From whatever, no more.
New Zealand.
America. All right, moving on.
Australia.
Hopefully, long-time listeners of our Mae Young Classic reviews will appreciate those jokes. All right, to the match itself, though. Yeah, fantastic performance by both of these women, and frankly, when you got the argument could be made the two best workers in the tournament. I mean, I know Mercedes was in the tournament. I know there were a couple of other people who are going to get spotlights as being fantastic wrestlers as well. But when you have, arguably, in my opinion, the two best workers in the tournament facing each other here, it was going to be nothing short of spectacular, and it absolutely lived up to expectations.
I mean, Kai looks incredible in defeat. Kairi looks, as good as only she has in pretty much every match she's had. I think once again, definitely for the second round, I think for all three rounds, she has had the longest matches of the round. So you can definitely tell where they're taking Kairi for the future. Mm-hmm. I've said it, God knows how many times, how much Dakota Kai fan I am. I just really hope that everything does end up paying off for her. And by all means, please continue throwing that two-corner running Yakuza kick. Because, bang. I don't think she has...
Don't think she has what? Sorry, you cut out.
I think he might have gotten hung up on, actually.
Oh, boy.
No, I'm here.
Okay,
welcome back.
Thank you. I
don't think she has what?
I want her to just continue constantly throwing the running start Yakuza kick because she has yet to not catch one flush.
I worry that move might be too much like Sami Zayn's Haluva kick for her to use on a full-time basis in the company.
Not a finisher.
It is not a finisher, it's true.
All the more reason to not use it, though.
I mean, it differentiates her a lot from... Nobody else on the women's roster is using it. I think it works very well. I like that sliding kick she does, too, in the corner. I think that one's wonderful as well. So just let her kick all day. I'm okay with that. She's great at it.
That's why she's a leader of Team Kick.
It's true. Absolutely. Which some wonderful person out there had to sign for that, which I greatly approved of. And that's the quarterfinals in the book. That's episode 7. Let's go ahead and rate this bad boy. What you guys gonna give it?
8. Best episodes of the tournament so far.
7.5, tied for the best episode with the first round for me.
God, I think I'm at 7.5 too. I don't know if I feel strongly enough about it to give an 8, but I mean, there is nothing below 3 stars on this show, and that definitely says a lot for sure. It's just wonderful.
My reasoning goes into the fact, though, that all 4 matches were worked in such different styles that there's something for everybody.
It's also very true. It's very true. I wish Candice and Shayna was a little longer, and that's sort of playing into it, but that was a very well-worked angle, and everything else was just terrific, too. So, and that only leaves us with episode 8, which has a whole grand total of 2 matches, which, of course, is your semifinals. They do some great video packages beforehand, and the one for the first match here with Mercedes Martinez and Shayna Baszler is very important because it plays up the fact that they know each other. They're running mates together in Trifecta and Shimmer. If nobody here listening has watched that show, they're in a stable together. And Mercedes, I also believe, has had a direct hand in helping train Shayna up a lot as well. That I don't think that was a work or anything. And this match is great. Lots of strikes. I love Mercedes basically young boying Shayna at the start with some of those strikes, trying to get her fired up, and eventually she goes a little far with it. And Shayna finally hits the Kirifuda driver and makes Mercedes tap out. But Mercedes looks phenomenal in this match, too. All the suplexes, and she just can't connect with the Fisherman Buster, and that really does her in.
I never thought I'd see the day where the backdrop driver's used on WWE television, but sure enough, we see not 1, not 2, but 3 of them in this match. Mm-hmm. And those were not back suplexes. Those were backdrop drivers.
Yes.
Those were Saito suplexes.
That was, please, dear God, Shayna, die right now.
I loved every part of this match, from the story told before the bell where Mercedes is shown respect by Shayna, as for the first time in the tournament, Shayna accepts the handshake. Mm-hmm. All the way to the fact that they tell the story that Mercedes is too worn out from her back in order to be able to capitalize when she does hit the Fisherwoman's Buster.
Dying of fire, Harry. God.
It's a running joke.
I know.
It's how it's always been for me. But anyways, Mercedes' back is too hurt to capitalize when she does hit the Fisherman Buster. And then when she goes forward a second time, Shayna catches her into the Kirifuda driver. Mm-hmm. And then once you get caught in Shayna's rear naked choke, it's all over but the tapping.
Game over, yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, the match was fantastic, and I mean, Mercedes essentially saved her best performance for last. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it was good to see Shayna be on the receiving end for somewhat extended period of time. I was very happy with that. It shows that she can take offense and be able to battle back a little bit. Not to mention, I think she has too much respect to Mercedes in real life to want any less. One gripe I have with this match, and it's not the match itself. It has nothing to do with the match itself. As a matter of fact, you're going to wait until now their history and bring up Trifecta, and then you're also going to seemingly forget about the Four Horsewomen aspect. It felt like they just totally changed gears with this match and this match only.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like I feel like the Four Horsewomen thing will come up more when we do the finals on September 12th.
Absolutely on that one. And I want to say they talked about Trifecta a little bit during the bracketology stuff when they talked about Shayna.
They did. They talked about
only Mercedes, I think. Only Mercedes.
No, they mentioned they showed in the highlight package for hold on one second. They showed in the highlight package for Shayna that she was a part of Trifecta because they showed a video of the three of them coming out together, much the same way they did in Mercedes' hype package.
Oh, you mean where I'm the star?
Yes, where you're the star, Patrick. God, that pained me a little bit. So after the match is over, you have this big pomp and circumstance with Mercedes and Shayna sharing a hug. You have Sarah Amato, Stephanie McMahon, and Triple H in there to congratulate Shayna for making it to the finals and give her flowers and all that stuff. And I only mention this because Sarah walking around the ring with Shayna gives her a couple of looks that really made me feel like she could kill her with her thumb and not even care. So,
wait, Sarah could kill Shayna, or Shayna could kill Sarah?
Sarah could kill Shayna with her thumb.
I think the bigger thing that I got out of that was looking at the two Shimmer Originals embrace.
That was really cool.
Amato and Mercedes Martinez. That was actually the thing that I got out more from that, even though it's a complete throwaway thing, has absolutely no bearing. But just seeing the two of them back in the ring together, hugging and everything, and kind of just embracing, that for me was bigger than anything that Shayna got after the match.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I ain't gonna lie. When Mercedes and Sarah shared that embrace in the middle of the ring, I got a little teary-eyed. Because to see those two women come from where they came from all the way to the biggest stage in the world inside of the WWE with the owner's daughter and the owner's daughter husband, who happens to be the next in charge of the company, standing in the ring with them, sharing the embrace that they got to share there. It's kind of a look at how far we've come kind of moment for both of them, and it was really appreciative.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree. I was going to mention that as soon as I was done making the joke about Sarah, but the two of them, I would argue, maybe jump-started women's wrestling here stateside once again with their match series in Shimmer in the early 2000s, mid-2000s?
2005.
Yeah, 2005, yeah.
Like, they literally kickstarted it with a 20-minute time limit draw in the sub-main event of the first show.
Yes,
so.
It was awesome.
You can make the argument that those two, along with certainly those two, along with Alice in Danger, Rain, Daisy Hayes, and why am I drawing a blank on the
Lacey. Lacey.
I said Lacey. Cheerleader Melissa was the name that I drew a blank on, which is rare for me. But you can make the argument that those six are the ones that put women's wrestling on the map.
Lacey, not Rain. You said Rain.
Oh, I did. You're right. I did say Rain. My mistake. Well, Rain became more known for her in-ring ability once Lacey stepped away.
True. I would also argue Mischief is in that equation too, but go ahead.
Real quick, one last thing. Was it just me, or did it look like Sarah Amato lost a hell of a lot of weight?
I mean, she's in those ring training people every day. I wouldn't be shocked.
Not to mention,
I mean, she's always been kind of a, I don't want to say, I guess, stockier
she has
female wrestler, and she looked like she had slimmed down quite a bit.
Well, I think you can also accredit that to the fact that she gets to live in one place now. She doesn't have to worry about the travel schedule taking its toll on her body like it traditionally does for workers when they're constantly on the road, constantly having to find places to eat after shows and stuff.
Fair point.
Fair point there, too. So next up, we have the main event for this episode, which is Kairi Sane taking on Toni Storm, who have had many a meeting in Stardom, and this very much felt like one of the matches they've had in Stardom. And to me, this has been the match of the tournament so far, mostly just because I am a huge fan of that style. But it's a slow build-up. You get some ebb and flows. Toni Storm tries to break off Kairi Sane's arm, which is awesome. And they eventually bring it home hard and open up a story for the finals with Kairi having the injured arm and all that. But she does win with the big elbow drop. Kairi gets all the same pop and circumstance. And, this match is just awesome. Absolutely something everybody should go watch.
I have seen that bridging double armbar before, and I can't remember where.
Tommaso Ciampa?
Thank you. Wow.
It was his finisher in NXT.
I'm sitting there watching that, and I'm like, I've seen that armbar before, but who the hell was it? But no, much the same. I've never seen any of their Stardom matches. I don't watch Puro. I don't watch Joshi. It's not for me. I mean, there are plenty of people out there who enjoy it, and by all means, more power to you. It's not for me. A lot of it has to do with the fact that I rely on commentary to help me understand the story for promotions I don't normally watch. So, therefore, those kind of promotions where there is no commentary that I would be able to discernibly understand does nothing for me. So, having never seen them perform against each other here, this was really good as a first-time viewer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would go with match of the tournament, but it was very good.
Hey, Sexy Star, that's how you throw an armbar and not try and hurt the person.
Yeah.
She's another one of those GFY people we talked about earlier, so move on.
But point stands.
The point does stand.
I mean, I won't say best match of the tournament, but, a very, very good match. Both of them look phenomenal coming out of it. I don't think we'll see Toni Storm in NXT, this year, but I would dare say soon. And Kairi Sane, once again, having another incredible match, another worthwhile main event match. So, both of them, nothing but positive to come out of this. And, Sane looks injured coming out of it, but, like I said, it's kind of the goofiness of the release schedule with that, in that, she's injured coming out of it. Yeah, well, we already know when you filmed it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But be that as it may, Shayna Baszler versus Kairi Sane in Las Vegas a week from today, should be a pretty damn good final for what's been a pretty damn good tournament.
For sure. Let's tie up this episode first. That's all for this episode. Let's go ahead and rate it real quick before we try to wrap up everything else. So, what are you going to give this one?
Patrick, you're up first this time.
7. I thought both matches, delivered very, very well. I can't give it, the best episode, but by no means was this a bad episode. This was another, make sure you watch this episode. I thought both matches were very, very good. It was great to see the extra pomp and circumstance after both matches. The one thing is, to me, Kairi Sane looked absolutely ridiculous trying to look intimidating against Shayna. To the point I found it funny.
I was going to point that out too.
But other than that, I thoroughly enjoyed the episode.
Oh yeah, I kept waiting for Kairi to bust out laughing while they were having their little MMA fighter stare down at the end of the show. I thought it was hilarious.
I did start laughing.
That might be why the camera cut away from her.
Might be.
Anyway, a slight step down from the quarterfinal episode just before, to me, in terms of in-ring action. I think the matches were good, but I think there was more quality in the quarterfinal matches, so I'm going to go with 7.5.
I'm at 7.5 too. Like I said, I think the main event here is the match of the tournament so far, and Mercedes and Shayna more than delivered on their end too. And this actually felt like a big deal, which I felt like the tournament had really lacked up to this point too. So 7.5 for sure here. So that's all the episode coverage. Now let's try to put a bow on this and with only really one match left to go, and I'm sure we might get a few extra hanger honors at whatever they're going to do on the 12th there in Vegas. Who do you think was the best performer the whole way through?
This might be a surprise to some people, but I think I'm going to go with Toni Storm. I think Toni had a very strong, diversified amount of matches in regards to her, and she had to work with some subpar competition in order to get there. But I think all of her matches, she came off like a superstar. Mm-hmm. I think Kairi Sane had a lot of very good matches as well, but her quality of opposition was significantly higher than Toni's.
Giving absolute all credit to Bianca Belair, because I think, her 2 matches were phenomenal and showed that, she's definitely got one hell of an upside in the future. But I'm actually going to go with Abby Laith. Yeah. I think she more than delivered in her first round match with Jazzy Gabbert, and then essentially made everybody forget about Rachel Evers' more than subpar first round match against Marty Bell, and then right around and makes people forget about her turns right around, and then in the third round faces Mercedes Martinez and makes everybody kind of forget about Mercedes' somewhat subpar match against Princess Suhei in the second round. So I thought Abby looked unbelievable in her 3 matches and comes out of this looking like a future rock star. And I'll go ahead and I'll say it again. I think at some point in 2018, she will get one of the women's title matches at an NXT takeover.
Can I offer a runner-up, Paul?
Go for it, buddy.
Hopefully I'm not stepping on your toes with this. I'm going to give an honorable mention for most impressive in this tournament to Candice LeRae. Or I guess as you could call her, Red Hot Babyface Fire. Because this crowd was all about Candice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as you mentioned earlier, she might be the face getting the second loudest reactions behind Kairi, and I would argue maybe got the most during that match with Shayna Baszler on episode 7.
That suicide dive into the tornado DDT on the ramp was fantastic. We didn't give that any credit during that particular discussion there, but that was one of arguably probably the best looking spot in the entire tournament, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wonderful, and I thought Candice was great in this too. There were a lot of wonderful competitors in this. Kairi Sane very much carried a lot of the show too. She got all the main events in every match she wrestled. She had a lot of great competition, and by far created, I think, the most consistent performance throughout. But I still think Piper Nevin's the star of this tournament for me. Great matches the whole way through. Not only she had great competitors too, but I think she more than overperformed and really won over a ton of people, fans, and people within the WWE alike, and just absolutely knocked this opportunity right out of the ballpark. So I think I'm going to give my most impressive tournament to Piper for sure.
Again,
go ahead.
Again, to the detractors of Piper when they first saw her at the bracketology special, GFY.
Yeah, she absolutely just gave you the biggest middle finger possible.
And Piper, please lose that Artist of Stardom title somewhat soon.
I really, really hope she gets a deal out of this because she deserves it so much.
I mean, there are a lot of independent wrestlers here who more than did enough to get a deal. Maybe who do you think actually got signed out of this? If you had to pick one, let's do that. If you had to pick one, who do you think got signed?
I think that's kind of obvious. Mm-hmm. To me, that's kind of obvious. So can I go with an honorable mention here as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
The kind of obvious choice is Candice LeRae.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of Johnny Gargano being down in NXT and the fact that the crowd responded to Candice as well as they did. To me, the one that I think deserved to be signed out of all of this is Mia Yim.
Damn it.
Suck it! We're not getting paid for this, so I can say that.
It's true. You got one, Patrick? Do you need to think?
You got a backup, Patrick?
I'm actually looking it over right now. I mean, out of everybody, I mean, without a doubt, my pick would have been Mia or Candice. That's tough because everybody else that you think would be signed already are signed. You know, Sarah Logan, Abby Lath. Even I would like to see Serena Deeb get one more run. Mm-hmm. She's just down in NXT.
Good pick. Good pick.
As you know, she made Vanessa Bourne look good, and then she's great going up against Piper Niven in their match in the second round. So, and I think it's a lot what we mentioned when we talked about that match, where if she were to just stay in NXT and kind of be that locker room leader, essentially the Broderick of, you know, the NXT women's division, and kind of guide everybody and help them, and essentially do what Sarah Stock and Sarah Amato are doing, but still have some on-screen time, having good, solid matches. Mm-hmm. I would absolutely be all for Serena Deeb signing one more time.
I'll let Paul go here, but somebody else just came to mind as well that I want to discuss, because when we originally talked about this person, when we did an episode of Wrestling Unwrapped, we were not impressed, but I was very impressed with her performance here, so I'll talk about that once Paul's given his.
I tell you what, boys, if there wasn't a contract with Santana Garrett's name on it by the time she got through that curtain after that match with Piper Niven, I don't know what anybody in NXT is thinking. Just absolutely, I think everything they're looking for, and they had her sign once, and they let her get away, and she went out there and absolutely proved them wrong. So it's time to bring her back and just see what you can do with her, because she is absolutely more than ready to be a superstar, if you ask me.
Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
That name that I was just about to mention?
Yeah.
Santana Garrett.
Santana Garrett, yeah.
I was thinking of our Shine 1 review.
That is exactly where I was going with it. She was portrayed as the face of the company for Shine, mm-hmm. and she had a less than impressive contest on Shine #1, and then she absolutely knocked it out of the park here against Piper Niven in the main event of the 3rd episode.
No doubt about
Santana's really done nothing but just get better and better. And you could see why TNA signed her, and she still wasn't even that great at that point. But since then, it seems like she's gone gigantic upswing. So, yeah, definitely worthy of a signing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even though her in-ring work wasn't the greatest in TNA, her portrayal of her character in TNA was fantastic, because that was back when I was watching on a regular basis. And her acting role when she portrayed the Britney character there was awesome. And with them being more and more developed on focusing the women's storylines, trying to put more and more cohesive storylines together, having a hand that would be able to competently pull off storylines and the acting that requires to pull off those storylines there, yeah, like Paul said, if there wasn't a contract with Santana Garrett's name on there, somebody screwed up big time.
Yeah, somebody done goofed big time. Did anybody's perception change at all on disappointing tournaments from the last episode at all? I doubt it, but...
Well, none of the people wrestled on this show in order to be able to change my perception of them. I still think, as far as the hype going into the show and then what they actually delivered with, I think the biggest disappointment is probably Marty Bell, but to be fair, she's never been anything great in the ring to begin with. Mm-hmm. But as far as the amount of hype that they were given in the lead-up to this, I think the biggest disappointment to me is still Nicole Savoy.
Yeah, it's either Nicole Savoy or, for me, they gave quite a bit of pomp and circumstance and backing also to Rachel Evers, which my question, why the hell are you going to change her name to differentiate her from her father and then still constantly mention that she's her father's daughter? Other than that, though, I think, especially Rachel's first round match, which guess what the common denominator is there, Marty Bell. I think she was able to overcome that with Abby Lath. I was still somewhat disappointed in her showing.
I had the Abby Lath match at 3 stars. I thought Abby and Rachel was really, really good, so I think Rachel more than redeemed herself for the Marty Bell performance.
I was close. I gave it 2 3/4 on that one, but I'm still with Nicole Savoy on that one as well. And once again, it's just not her fault. It's how she was portrayed and how she was booked and all that. So Let's talk about all the extracurriculars, and I mentioned this at the top of the show, but let's go ahead and talk about the release schedule, because I'm sure we all have some strong feelings on that, but the first batch made sense, right? That was all the first round. Here it all is. Go ahead, enjoy. And that was great. I really have a problem with them sticking the quarterfinals all in one episode. I kind of would have liked to have seen that spaced out some more. And then them maybe not giving you a bit of a break between rounds or something like that might have been a little hurtful as well.
Well, unfortunately, with the title, with the championship being crowned on next Tuesday night, it's already Wednesday morning here on the East Coast. With the championship being crowned next Tuesday night here, they would have only had a day or two if they would have released the semifinals after Raw or during Raw or before Raw on the Monday prior. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, while I don't necessarily like the fact that they released the second round, quarterfinals, and semifinals all on the same day, it was still fun to sit down and watch through all 4 episodes.
Like, I would have been okay if they did it by round. Do exactly the same thing with the first round that you did, and then do the second round as 2 4-match episodes, do the quarterfinals a week later as 2 2-match episodes, and then do the semis like you did, but just space it out a week per round at the very least. If you don't want to do it 10 weeks on, like they did with the CWC last year, you didn't have to wait almost 2 months here. You filmed this in early July. Just do, or even, do a first airing of the semifinals after SummerSlam, or the quarterfinals after SummerSlam, or somewhere in that ballpark, and leave your, a release of every week in August, and then leave yourself like 2 weeks before the finals. That to me would have made the most sense.
Well, let me toss this idea at you, Patrick, then. How would you have felt about them doing the first round on Monday, the quarterfinals on Tuesday, and then waiting until the following Monday to do this, or the second round on Tuesday? The following Monday would have the quarters, the following Tuesday would have the semis.
No, honestly. I still think either do it weekly, like you did last year's tournament, or do the rounds weekly, but don't try to do some, stupid, goofy scheduling, because not only that, with everything you're doing on Tuesday, that means you got to smash in the Mae Young Classic launch, plus SmackDown, plus 205.
Well, I mean, if you release it at 9 o'clock in the morning like you did the other episodes, then that wouldn't be that big of a issue.
I still say do it weekly.
Kind of with Patrick on this one. I would have preferred maybe a little bit of space, but once again, I didn't necessarily mind the binge factor either. This was going to lead into my next question is, do you think this was binge watchable at all? Because I definitely chewed through the first round much faster than I did these 2, but that was mostly because of Labor Day getting in the way of me watching stuff on Monday, but I definitely found this very bingeable. I thought that from that point of view of the experiment that WWE was doing here, I found that to be a success.
I think that it's definitely binge watchable, and I think it has the same kind of binge watching factor as the early episodes of Monday Night Raw have in that regard, in that you're willing to go from one episode into the next, into the next, into the next. And technically, going through the women's tournament here, if you're watching the first round binge style, you're not going to get carryover storylines like you would watching the early episodes of Raw and stuff. But it's that 1 hour factor of being able to sit and watch a show that just breezes by like that, like that, like that, like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in this case, you're done with the entire first round in just over the time it would take to watch a normal pay-per-view anyway.
Right.
I think it averaged to about 48 minutes per episode, 96, 180, 192 minutes, if everything keeps to a 48-minute average. 192 minutes, that's... and extended pay-per-view. That's Great Balls of Fire.
Mm-hmm.
So the binge factor, yeah, I think that was absolutely doable. That kind of goes along with what I was saying. Go and do each binge thing weekly. and everyone knows that, the first round's going to have more matches anyway. So yeah, do 4 episodes there. Next week, do 2 4-match episodes then the next week. So you still have all of this stuff packed together. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, when you get to the semis, well, you're not going to be able to binge that. You're not going to have enough matches.
Right.
Well, therein lies my question. Do you think it was released the way that it was in order to give them 4 and 4?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole point of testing this release schedule, such as it was to see how well binge watching would work on the network. And from that point of view, I think they definitely succeeded in that, because I like I said, I found this very bingeable, and I would be willing to do this again for really anything that they want to release wrestling wise. I don't know so much about reality stuff because that's just not really my cup of tea, but wrestling for sure, I would be okay to do this with.
My hope would be that we somehow see some kind of variation of the tag team tournament later this year or early next year along the same format.
Now, if I can ask a question,
shoot.
How would you guys feel about them switching off tournaments? Last year we had the Cruiserweight Classic. This year we had the Mae Young Classic in terms of the long-term tournaments, not counting the UKCT. How would you guys feel if maybe next year they did the Cruiserweight Classic again, then in 2019 they do the Mae Young Classic too?
I think it would depend on whether or not you're going to have the tag teams involved as well, because I feel like you're doing a disservice to the tag team divisions if you don't give them the opportunity. I feel like the WWE and specifically NXT has enough upcoming tag teams that they could fill out a tournament, in addition to using various tag teams from around the independent circuit as well to fill that out. As far as those 3 tournaments go, rotating year to year to year, I'd be perfectly okay with that.
I would like to see the Dusty Rhodes Classic in a more long form than what we'd usually have gotten in the last 2 years, that's for sure. I don't know if they'd necessarily want to take that away from NXT, though. On the flip side of that, Triple H has said in conference calls that he kind of wants the Mae Young Classic to be a yearly thing, so not only can you sort of check in with maybe people who are on NXT all that often, or you get to see some more of the women who are in the Performance Center that haven't necessarily gotten the chance, but he can reintroduce maybe people who didn't get signed this go around or haven't been signed into the tournament and see where they're at next year and all that. And from that angle, I really like that, mostly just because I think that's a really neat idea to revisit. I don't know if you need to do another Cruiserweight tournament, simply because I don't know how much 205 Live has really wowed them, and to hear them talk about it, at least as far as rumors and stuff like that on the internet goes, they're not all that strong on maybe keeping it around, or maybe keeping it as a huge presence on the network outside of 205 Live. So maybe we don't do another Cruiserweight Classic or something like that. Maybe we just do a straight up male tournament if you want to do something like that. But I like the idea of the Mae Young Classic every year personally.
Let me expand upon that. With the rumors of NXT possibly expanding its television presence, would you be okay with a 1-hour Women of NXT show a week?
To me, if you separate the women and the men into different shows, I kind of feel like that goes against what you're trying to accomplish with the Revolution, right? You're trying to prove them equal, and giving them their own show kind of seems a disservice to that message. I like them on the same show, personally.
Yeah, I think originally that was pretty much what my thought was, where you do 7 to 8, being NXT men, and then like 8 to 9 be NXT women. I think if you want them to be equal, you do 7 to 9 in a 2-hour episode of NXT. I think would be the best idea, and you just intersperse everything together.
Right.
I definitely feel like we're getting to the point in time where NXT is going to have to expand. If NXT does expand, do you feel like the women of NXT are going to be the ones carrying the bulk of the burden of the expansion?
I don't know.
No.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Sorry,
No, you're fine.
The problem is, probably not, although, they may get a quarter of every episode, but I think it's going to be NXT itself is expanding too fast for its own good. Now it's just got top star after top star after top star after top star, and certain things are going to have to fall by the wayside. Would getting a second title help? Absolutely. Give lower on the card guys something to push for. Mm-hmm. But it's you could make the argument that it should be put on the backs of the women, but I don't think it's going to be. They'll get featured, but it won't be 50-50.
That's sort of where I'm at too, because the men's side of the roster is super top heavy right now, and this is something me and Gary talk about very often on our NXT reviews, is that there's so many big names in NXT right now from the independent scene and really maybe some of the guys that they've built up on NXT themselves, that it's so easy to expand that out to 2 hours already right now just with all the names they have there. But whether the women are responsible for the expansion or not, I don't know. I could definitely see it, especially after this tournament where you get to see just how much talent they have, just of the people they have signed. That's not even including all the independent people they brought in, but all the signed talent for sure could definitely carry a lot. I don't know if I see it going that way with how top heavy the male side of the roster is. Yeah, okay. The commentary was something else I wanted to talk about too, and I know we kind of talked about this a little bit off air. To me, I felt like it got worse, honestly. I felt like Lita was constantly lost, or whenever she was about to make a point, she would either lose her train of thought or JR would cut her off, and then they would just sort of move on to whatever. And to JR's credit, there were times where I felt like he was much better than he was the first time around, and there were certainly times as the tournament dragged on to the last two episodes here where I felt like he kind of got worse and maybe fell into a couple of those holes that he was in, calling the New Japan US G1 specials. Which admittedly, it's not like he was forgetting and didn't know people's names. It was just like they'd sort of go off on a tangent, and it didn't really apply to what was happening in the ring at times.
I feel like it was a definite step up from the first set of episodes. I thought that JR was much more involved in the second set of episodes, and I also thought that the commentary came off much less stilted than it did in the first set, but I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the first episodes had to be re-recorded due to the change in creative direction for some of the matches. My question to you guys is if things would have stayed the same with the original commentary for the first episodes, do you think we would have been better off with that, or do you think that the commentary would have suffered even more?
Oh, boy, I don't know. Because to me, I don't know if it got worse for me. I don't know if you maintain that same level you have from the first round. I don't know if that's better or worse, honestly.
I mean, it seems like now we're at a point where JR needs to kind of get a head start. To me, it happened when he called Wrestle Kingdom, and it seemed like it kind of happened with the G1 specials, and especially seemed to happen here where he's very slow to start and does pick up, but he's starting to show his age, and it does seem like if he's having to call extended things, it's a disservice to him. Him calling the United Kingdom Championship match in Chicago at TakeOver, I thought he did a great job. Mm-hmm. But he it's one of those things where it's starting to show now, and some of the luster is starting to be lost, I think.
I'm going to completely disagree with that, but that's mostly because I'm one of those people that is of the opinion with everything that Jim Ross has given to the sport, he can do no wrong. Are some of his performances leaving something to be desired? Yes, but at the same time, if JR still feels that he's going to be, that he's still physically able to call a show, I'm not going to be the one to tell him he can't.
Of course you're not. You're not hired by the WWE.
Yeah.
My point being is that with everything that Jim Ross has given to this business, he's kind of earned that level of respect from, I think, the higher-ups and his co-workers at the company, that they would allow him to have the opportunity to call this. I do feel like this tournament would have been better with Morrow on the call than with Jim Ross on the call, but at the same time, though, you could tell that there were certain times where Ross was his original raw, engaged self with these shows as well. Mm-hmm. And it was like listening to the JR of old.
I will give you that. When JR was on during this, it was like having that old blanket that you used to have when you were a kid that's just so full of memories that you just sort of felt safe, right? And to Patrick's point, too, JR I thought was so great during the UK stuff because he had a very competent partner in Nigel McGuinness to help sort of carry him along. And I definitely don't think he had that here as much as I kind of wanted Lita to work out here. She just didn't. And... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, Lita was awful.
Yeah, she was not good at all. And on the flip side of that coin, looking at the New Japan stuff, I don't know if he's ever really had a strong partner over there either, except maybe, I enjoyed his call with Matt Stryker personally, but like the Josh Barnett stuff at the G1 specials was just not good, if you ask me. So I think JR can still be his old self. I just think he needs somebody to help kind of, I don't want to say carry him, but keep him pushing in the right direction instead of letting him go off on all these tangents. And I don't know if you're always going to get that with some people just because in this situation, JR and Lita are good friends, and it felt like that with him and Josh Barnett as well.
But I'm even, like, here, real quick, but even like to the point of what I had said with Wrestle Kingdom, I thought he did do pretty well at Wrestle Kingdom later on, you know. So by the time he got to the main event, he sounded like the JR of old, but those first few matches were brutal with him. The G1 Classic, I didn't watch enough of it to really give a full opinion. But it's just, to me, it felt like if JR had Morrow, or if JR even, I know I saw the name pitched to Renee, I think could have been a hell of a lot better.
Oh, I think Renee would have been much better than Lita during this tournament, but at the same time, they wanted somebody who had actually been in the ring.
Right.
If you were going to go with somebody who had been in the ring with broadcasting experience, I don't know why you don't get somebody like Ivory to do this tournament either. Because
WWE has forgotten that Ivory exists.
Apparently. Also, as far as Paul's point goes about JR and the Wrestle Kingdom show, I'm arguably the world's biggest match striker apologist, so I felt like Stryker was more than competent to help him carry JR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, I enjoyed their call, honestly, so I guess maybe... I know we talked about how special this didn't feel after the first set. Did the second set of shows here change your opinion on that at all? Did it feel any more special to you at all?
Made it worse.
Made it worse?
For me, it made it worse when they smashed all 3 rounds together.
Honestly, general indifference as far as how the whole presentation was. To me, it was always going to be about the in-ring product over the way that it was presented.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the women lived up to my expectations, and in some cases, Piper Niven, Bianca Belair, Toni Storm, Rhea Ripley, a couple of others, greatly exceeded them.
I mean, I agree. There are a lot of standout performances in this tournament for sure, and especially when you take into account that this was just shot over 2 days and how much work went into everything from the second round forward from a lot of these ladies. I think it makes a lot of these performances stand out even more so in that regard. But presentation, for sure, definitely was not on the special feed. And I really hope they kind of change that going into the finals in Vegas. Because honestly, outside of a trophy, we still don't know what these girls are going to get. So maybe you get an announcement there. And I'm kind of worried about the crowd in Vegas next week, too, because they're going to have to sit through a lot to either get to this point or, you know, SmackDown might tire him out too, because that's already looking like kind of a stacked show on that front as far as TV goes. So it's a lot to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a potential very rare for the WWE for a regular show like this. You're looking at a potential 4-hour night.
Mm-hmm.
So, because you're going to go SmackDown, you're going to go, SDL, then this, and then I've heard both yes and no that 205 is and isn't going to happen. I've heard more yes. So if you thought 205 suffers now, just wait until you have to not only get through SmackDown first, but now you have to get through SmackDown and this. 205 is going to be dead in the water.
Mm-hmm.
So I worry about that too.
I'm almost saying that you do SmackDown Live, do the Mae Young Classic for an hour and a half, and then if you insist on doing anything with 205 Live, air a best of episode.
I mean, I think cutting 205 Live that week might be in the best interest as far as the live audience goes, for sure. I don't know if you go 90 minutes with the ladies here at the finale. I would be okay with it. I don't know. I'm real worried about that crowd and their attention to this, because you're asking a lot of them now. Not only is women's wrestling kind of niche still, but you're asking them to stick around for women they don't know, and that could be a big risk. I still like the hour format, and to that question, do you think who do you think we might see outside of the finale show up on that show? Because they usually, I would say, probably a tag match is probably guaranteed, and maybe another singles, but.
I think it'll depend on availability. If Piper and Tony are still in Japan, it would be a crying shame, because frankly they deserve to be a part of the finale. I believe Santana. I believe Santana would be a likely choice. I think Candice is a likely choice. I think Mia is a likely choice.
None of them. I say absolutely none of them. I think you go almost strictly WWE signees. I think you look at maybe an Abby Lath and Lacey Evans versus Dakota Kai and Sarah Logan type match, or you give the crowd two other singles matches and you do standout performances. Maybe you do a Abby Lath and Bianca Belair type match. But I don't think we see. Maybe we get Serena Deeb. But I don't think we get Piper Niven or Toni Storm. Like you said, though, I think they're still in Japan.
They are. So the 5-star Classic still going on over there for Stardom.
Yeah. So I think you're looking more at strictly WWE signees in this case. So I think we get Abby Lath. I think we get Dakota Kai. I think we get maybe Lacey Evans, maybe Sarah Logan. But I think it's strictly WWE.
I would not be shocked by that at all if it's mostly just NXT signings at the show. I would say maybe Santana and Serena are outside shots to show up, but other than that, I think you're right. I think it's NXT people for sure. Honestly, that's all I have, so unless you guys have any questions you want to talk about, we can get to the plugs.
I got one.
Shoot.
Exactly one more. Where the hell was Alundra Blaze?
Great question.
We were promised Alundra Blaze on the second half tapings. Where was Alundra Blaze? If nothing else, morbid curiosity.
Missy's Manor.
We don't know that it's going to be the same quality as Missy's Manor or Missy's Corner or whatever the hell it was. But
it was Missy's Manor.
Out of absolute morbid curiosity, I want to see Deborah Michelli, damn it.
I have zero interest in Alundra, so I'm good.
I know a lot of the backstage stuff that they shot for the show ended up on a lot of their social media pages. So they're out there floating around if you do want to see them. But I'm with you. She was supposed to be on these shows, and they didn't bring that, so that's kind of disappointing, at least on that end, but maybe they saw them and were like, oh, God, we can't use this. Just social media. Go, go, go.
Great. Turn even more people off to what you want to do.
Yeah,
I feel like there's an STWW plug to be had there, but I'm not going to make it.
And quite frankly, there is one more thing we probably should do here and now, since we're probably not going to do a preview before the final, Paul.
Yeah, there is one other thing that we do need to get to. I'll go first here. Kairi Sane, pinfall, 15 minutes, 26 seconds.
That's specific, but...
Diving elbow drop.
I'm taking Kairi Sane possibly via 2 elbows, and possibly even Kairi getting out of the Gesundheit driver that Shayna likes to do.
Kira Fuda.
Bless you. But I think Kairi has more to gain by winning this than Shayna. So I think Kairi gets the win, and I think we start the build towards Four Horsewomen versus Four Horsewomen from this.
I think you're right on about all that. I think Kairi wins too. I'm also still thinking that the NXT Championship being the NXT Women's Championship being vacated. Kairi Sane winning this instantly puts her in line from that. I wouldn't be shocked if they do this and then maybe do something on NXT to make that match a official going into a takeover for the championship. So Kairi Sane to be featured there as well. But I think she wins. I also think keeping Shayna to that 10 to 15 minute time limit is a smart move. I don't know if it goes over 15, but I would say 12 to 13 is a definite a shoe-in for sure.
I also, before we get out of here, I want to say that I want a wrestler with a sneezing gimmick, and their finisher is called the Gesundheit driver.
You're welcome for that.
We're not supposed to racial profile anymore, Harry.
How is sneezing a racial? Yeah,
I feel like if you got a Gesundheit driver, that means she's German.
No,
I just don't want it. I don't want it to be called the Bless You driver because then it's religious profiling. How's that, Paul?
What the hell?
You can listen to myself and Sean Garmer here weekly on the W2M network with the SmackDown Live and the 205 Live reviews here, also on W2Mnet.com. Paul sat in for Sean this weekend because Sean was busy taping the season preview for Football to the Max. But Sean and I think Sean and Gary will have coverage for SmackDown next week, possibly because of the finals of the Mae Young Classic.
Yeah, we still need to sort that out.
And that's not wanting to be up until, frickin' 3 a.m. like it is East Coast right now, doing the reviews for these shows again. But yeah, that's part of where you can find me here on the W2M network. You can also find me on another show here that Patrick will now tell you about.
Well, if you ever shut up about it, I will. Indeed, you can listen to Harry and myself. You can listen to Harry and myself on Wrestling Unwrapped. A little bit of technical difficulties have prevented us from getting all of the episodes out properly. We are going to get that caught up, including our most recent episode, Rise 1 Ignite, from the Bengals Club this past November. And then this weekend, I guess, we will be recording WrestlePalooza 8 from First Avenue in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
First wrestling owned by Eric Cannon, if I'm not mistaken.
Let's say you better get that one right.
Yeah. First Wrestling is a really fun promotion. I haven't seen that particular show, but the WrestlePalooza shows are always fun. So, I do Wrestling to the Max. That's what I do. I was about to plug myself for something, and now I remembered. We do episodes every Monday and Thursday, and they're out for the download for you on Tuesday and Friday to enjoy. We have part 2 coming up this week where we'll cover Global Force Wrestling and Lucha Underground and all sorts of great stuff. So,
Don't sell yourself short, Paul. You and Gary also do the Monday Night Raw and the NXT reviews as well.
We do. Sean sat in for me this week so I could have a show off, seeing as I did all the other stuff this week. So, very kind of him to do that for me. And that I think that does it, unless you guys are going to yell at me about doing something else.
I'm good. I'm done. I'm going to bed.
Yeah, I'm going to yell at you about getting us out of here.
For Harry, for Patrick, and myself, I'm really happy we only have one episode left. Good night, guys.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.